well, I'll be presenting just pretty much some of the things we in the research working group kind of come up with over the past few weeks. This will not be inclusive. The document is still a work in progress, but we quite a bit got done. So we just want to, talk in a sense. And feel free, I make this very, informal, in that let's just, as I go through the slides, if you got a question, let's just go ahead and engage right then and there, that way we can just, move forward in this. Just know that I have to be finished by 2:30 because I have a 3:45 flight. Okay. So, not that I just want to leave you, but as they say, I gotta go. Okay. So when we think about it again, this is the model we kind of went with, the iceberg model, where you pretty much looking at all the dynamics of stuff that's going on. And in this, I shared in the first presentation, I talked about mentorship. Now, the love, the labor of love, and also as it relates to the language of how you got to engage, things you got to be mindful of. And then, of course, something that I really learned this one from a discussion with the provost, how that there's a great deal of invisible labor. Well, I knew about it, I just didn't know how to phrase it in that conversation with the provost. She gave me a very good comment on it and just stuck with me. And that invisible labor is what we assume in many cases, a lot of energy and efforts go into these things, go into mentorship. And it's like the water that's around the iceberg. You just automatically assume there's gonna be water there, right? So invisible labor is like many of the service that you put into it that you just don't get credit for. Okay. And that's something that our environment has to start considering all the things we do. The mentoring in this model, if you notice, 10% is above water, right? The huge lift is below water. Okay. Anytime we see our students that they blossom and grow, or our younger faculty that they blossom and grow, we just see that portion, the amount that went into it, right? That went into it was tremendous. And that's what the mentoring normally does. But we'll find out as it goes on that this flips. The mentee, the role of mentee or mentor begins to switch, okay, begins to grow, right? All right, our group, our research working group, all the names you have here and those with the asterisks about it, were the students, and they were very engaged. Some of you all out here now, and I appreciate having your presence. And your comments and our insights. Now here, this may seem very simple, but it was very a very engaging process that we got to this definition. It's a working definition, mainly because we knew that in mentorship, in general, mentorship is a very broad topic, very vague in cases. But we wanted to make sure that it was becoming a definition one. We need to know our boundaries, our boundary condition, as we say in science in many cases, of what we're fashioning this thing around. So we had to look at a lot of detail associated just with USD. Okay, we wanted to understand it. We looked at the mission, got the mission, the core values, vision, a little about the historical perspective. We made sure that we pulled in the makeup, student body makeup, and how it has evolved, okay, over the years. So we tried to put all this collectively together, and we came up with this working definition, such that it will allow as we continue, as the environment continues to grow, it can even evolve. It evolves and continue to grow. Okay. So we, you know, just to read out, if you don't mind me just getting out, mentoring is an authentic, right? That's what we have to stress, authentic, reciprocal relationship between two or more people. It's not always just one-on-one. Sometimes it's a small group, but nevertheless, with the intent to exchange a combination. Now, this is where we get into a bit more, you know, details, a little bit more boundary conditions associated with USD. Opportunities, skill sets, realistic expectations, and you know, we want to make sure not just expectations, but we also have to know engagement has to, it occurs to help make sure they're realistic. And then an expansion of perspectives, because many times when you're engaging with the mentee, the mentor helps them to see a variety of ways of looking at it. And then even when, as you grow in the relationship, the mentee can helps the mentor see some things that they haven't seen before too. So we talk about that. And then the wellness and financial support in order to help one another to fulfill common and individual goals, achievements, and holistic development as it relates to the core values of USD. And as you notice, when we continue to talk about mentorship, you notice that it's not a one-dimensional or one-directional. It's an engagement, right? It's a two-way street, and if you continue to grow, it may become a major highway. but nevertheless, and then we recognize there are other definitions that are out there too, as associated with USD, but we want to make sure that we understand that this is what we kind of came up with as a working definition that would definitely be adopted here in mentoring. So this is a kind of like an outline of the handbook. We pretty much have, like, again, 4 major areas, types and roles. They're very straightforward. We do want to include that there are some professional coaching and licensed counseling and things of that nature. We don't want to ignore that. Just that you don't have to get into that. You just got to refer them to it. All right, because it's the discipline in itself. But then the timing. This was one of the. It's a major issue that we didn't get to kind of late. I think in some cases we're still fleshing out some of the details on it. But timing, we were speaking in two arenas. One, timing in the sense of actual time, minutes, things of that nature, minutes, days, frequency, and then we also were talking about the actual things you got to be mindful of. Okay, sometime in discussion, sometime in your engagement, you got to be, the timing is very important. Okay, so we looked at the major 3 areas: your stages of engagement, your settings, and also your seasons. The season is kind of simple because it's really gauged around our academic season. Okay, standard semesters, you got some mini semesters or inter sessions like winter, something like that, or the breaks when they have a very intense way of engagement, and of course the summers. Now the summers is usually used for the research because of the environment of USD. So, and that's standard. I know in some academic settings, like say Morgan at my home institution, it's a combination because there are also a lot of classes too. We offer a lot of classes to give students a chance to catch up and things like that. I'm doing a lot more than usual. But then in the settings of the engagement, this is where it becomes very, very, very useful to understand the timing associated with it, because when you're in an academic environment, right, it can vary a little bit because academic, when we say academic, we're speaking more or less like the classroom kind of sort of, where you have to, your engagement may be slightly different as compared to when you're advising, or it's advising more, but you're one-on-one. Most of the time you're in an office setting, things of that nature, leading into, of course, research mentoring. You more gaze around the lots of time, new problems, new situations, new ideas to try to investigate things of that nature. So the stages of that, the mechanics of research mentoring may be slightly different than that if you get with a classroom or things of that nature, of course. But sometimes there is overlap, right? And then, of course, administrative. Now that one came into play because we knew that, especially from an academic setting, that administrative, that there are other influences that could really help the engagement, like say department chair, or you got things outside of the department, but like the library or resources that can come up to, you know, that's on the campus that can allow strengthen the mentorship that gives support to the mentee and things of that nature. And then, of course, off-campus events that can happen. Sometimes you maybe get engaged, you initiate sometimes mentorship, or you get engaged by just crossing in general public stuff, like you going to the grocery store, or you happen to go to an event together, you have this, you know, cross. I had several of my students like, oh, you Dr. Rockward. I'm like, nope, that's not me. And but that kind of started things. So they start talking, I didn't know you come here, man. And then we start talking about, because what the main thing is that in mentoring, you have to be able to connect. And many times by having similar interests and things, and it helps the students to connect and also to know that you have a sense, you have authentic engagement with them. You really care about it and their well-being. And then, of course, the stages. Okay, that was I think I went over that one already, but we try to make sure that we share with some of the effective practices that in the introductory phase, you want to be short. You do not want to be long in the introductory phase, right? You want to, it's like a getting to know each other phase, okay? Where it may be a little more frequent, but you want to keep about 10 to 30 minutes, okay? You know, to give time, especially with students, because they're, you know, it's like you want to give them a reason to come back. So you can't give them all at once. And likewise, from the instructional phase portion of it, the more in the classroom, in the field, you know, things of that nature, and during office hours or something like that. Okay. Now the one that you may want to is when we get to the generative, we call it kind of also collaborative. Because in that phase, that's when it begins to the mentee-mentor relationship begins to morph into a more of a two-dimensional thing, okay, where or bi-directional, where the mentee begins to begins to engage and also sharing some things with the mentor. The mentor begin to learn and learn some new things that and things that nature. So you want as you go into that one, you cross into intermittent, and that one is can be mentoring relationships that happen sporadically, or after they graduate, then they go into graduate school, so you're not in frequent contact with them, okay? But you schedule or you have a prescribed way of doing it, and then of course you evolve into your lifetime. Eventually, that's what's going to happen, and with not necessarily all of your mentorship relationship, but many of them will eventually become like, you know, young colleagues, you know, academic, you know, sons and daughters and things like that, you know. And you think about many of the ones who actually mentored you along the way, and you stay in touch with them, and you know, and we even talked about how you have some friendship ones that y'all haven't talked in almost a year, right? As soon as you start talking to them, it's as if you've been on point with them, you know, since last time you talked, which was probably 6 to 8 months or 18 months ago. So that is very important. And then last tools and techniques. I'm not gonna spend much on this because I got a slide for both of those. But many of the time we designed for, of course, for everyone. Then we looked at particularly to strengthen the support mechanism on this particular environment as we look for that. Okay, in training, we just didn't get to that. That's something we probably have to develop more. Okay, let's go into techniques with I'm up here, y'all. I try to make this nice and what they call it, animated. Well, thanks to Martin, she helps me with a lot of this. But anyway, this kind of it's for all of us that can relate for underrepresented minorities, right? But to a greater degree, this really applies to just anyone in any relationship with mentee. Many of these apply to everything. Like cultural, we always talk in first, as you engage, especially in the informative stage, you want to make sure that you share your personal experience or share some of your heritage or share some, let them see that they need to see the other side of you, well, another hat that you wear, okay? But many times, especially with our students, they see us primarily as, we are the, top of the echelon and we're the demigods, you're right, we know it all, right?
Yeah, I don't think they did that.
So, but we're doing it more from an informative way and not a comparative way. Okay. Please, and I always say in this area too, don't assume anything with your mentee. Especially underrepresented minority, don't assume they came from a poor background and things of that nature. Let them share with you their situation. Okay. Instead, you got to be engaged enough to ask some critical questions, things of that nature too, and let it be a natural share. Try to understand cultural, ethnic factors, right? And this one, we had some real rich discussion on, especially when we talked about classroom inserts, okay? Like some of your exams, you may use names, non-traditional names. Now, I personally sometimes use my students' names, but I make sure throughout the lectures, before I get to the exam, I may ask them, hey, is it all right for me to use your name or something like that? How you feel about me? Sometimes I might just use your name. Not that I'm trying to, put you on the spot. But I'm trying, I want you to see yourself in some of these problems, and things like that. And many of them say it's fine, cool. Some of them say, nah, leave me out of it. I'm like, cool, that's fine. It's just that what it does to them, it lets them know that I respect that boundary. And it begins to help them want to connect with me in other ways. So definitely want to make sure you do that. But it's a good technique to help get them started, okay, especially in class. But you want to try to seek to understand their ethnic factors, because different cultures have different situations. Festivals are a good way of finding out some of those things like that. But it's just good to do that. I'm not gonna go through each one of these. I'm going to leave these slides too with you, but I just want to hit some key ones, like especially let me see, the one friendships, critical mass recruitment. Yeah, we talked about that one. At the bottom, group dynamics, collaboration. How you begin to start sharing as you evolve. Remember, you're going through the different stages of engagement. In group dynamics, you begin to start evolving in some of the roles that they play in. Okay, especially when you're mentoring a small group. Are you in a classroom and you give them project orientation topics, and you especially, I know I do this a lot in my instructional labs. I deliberately put them in like groups of 4, and many times in the labs, and I've already defined the different roles, and I make them rotate through the roles, okay, because it gives them a chance. Some of them, beginning, they're strong, they're good at doing the actual experiment and getting the data, okay. But then there's some of them who, they're strong at recording things, right? And then you got one that helps set up the equipment, okay. Then I make them rotate, and they get a chance to, okay, I ain't too good with this one, things of that nature. But I always let them know is you have to get accustomed to all of the roles, even though they may not be your strengths, okay. When you're moving through the professional arena, you have to play different roles and you learn it. And then allow them a few labs to kind of say, settle in your best role, okay. And they kind of work together from there. But group dynamics helps them also in mentoring, where the role begin to change between the mentor and the mentee. And many times I've shared what happened with me with some of my students, where they began, some of my students at Morehouse, they would help, they would actually coach me and mentor me on how the language of speaking to my children, and they were in their teenage stage, okay? I had 7 children and 4 boys and 3 girls, and at some point I always knew as a parent, I wanted to be able to stay in touch with them, connect with them, okay? And that means I gotta learn their language, right? And something I couldn't say from my language, my dynamics when I grew up, it had that change. It has changed when they for theirs. I used to say, it was a phrase, I even use it now. They adopted it now because it's like it's whack, but that's okay. But yeah, right, we would say, I used to say it all the time. I just forgot it that quick. You say hot and heavy. Okay, my next thing, I'm gonna do is gonna be hot and heavy. And they're like, hot and heavy? What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? And then I explained to them, I said, oh, that's like, it's like we got to do a fast pace, we got to make things happen, so what we said, we let's pick the pace. Okay, that sounds good. And they also got other terminologies, but what it does is, in my mentee mentor role, it helped the mentee begin to start realizing that I respect their language and their dynamic and their generation, and they begin to engage with me more. Okay, because there's some stuff that they like, Dr. Rock, it don't make no sense. And, that's good, and that's good, Especially underrepresented minorities, that last phrase, truthful reinforcements. And I try to share with some of my colleagues who are not, who may be white colleagues or whatever, and I tell them, look, you ain't got to say everything that's positive and everything. Sometimes it is what it is, but you say, hey, come on, man, you're not stepping up. I expect you to be doing more. You're not coming to the research lab enough. You need to be in a lab. I expect that of all my graduate students. I expect that of all my students. You know what I'm saying? And I say, you let them know that because if you try to sugarcoat it, okay, then you're not being real with them. Just dealt with a situation, where a student came in with one of my faculty back in Morgan. The student was, he had a compassionate heart, okay. But I tell them that you got to draw the line, okay. You still got to learn the physics, right? Bottom line, we assign grades off their performance. And they got that many activities going on in their life where they cannot come to class, they cannot do, then in a nice way, you let them know you're gonna get what you make. Okay. And if you see that, you talk to them and say, hey, coach them that they're going down a path that they're gonna lead to the same thing. I said, don't be so concerned about all their dynamics, life dynamics, that it takes away from what their purpose is in class. So be truthful with them, but also be real with them. I mean, be compassionate. Now for department chairs, I kind of gave this during the chair meeting, and told them, from administrators, there's some things we can do to help the mentoring system as a community collectively for USD, to help, like they say, buy-in and things of that nature. And that's some stuff here, both for faculty and for student, create systems that allow students to get early involvement, engage into the research and stuff like that. And, early involvement, don't always have to wait till they're juniors and seniors, start helping grow into it, okay, things of that nature, which means it helps also grow into the mentoring aspect of things, okay. I'm picking a couple of these out. One thing I did mention to my department, determine the department's strength and really grow from it, and really push it forward, and even a mission and vision. One of the things at Morehouse, we eventually got like a little tag for our department. We hard but fair. Okay. And the students like, hard but fair, yeah. You know, I'm gonna be on it, you're gonna do the work. Okay. But I'm gonna be fair about it. You know. And I said, they said, well, okay, well, you fair, then we can deal with that. I said, well, actually, you really don't want me to be fair, but I'll be fair. They said, what you mean by that? I said, and then we start talking to him about fair. I said, what you want to do eventually, you want to get rid of the word fair out of your vocabulary. I think because fair means exact. And I got to give you exactly what you made. Because they say, what you mean? I said, yeah, that's what fair means. I said, now what the problem is that you all have defined fair as something that's when it's not in my favor. All right. I said, that's when it goes to the left. Then that's when y'all say, oh, it's not fair. I said, but if it goes to the right, I said, for instance, what if I'm grading your exam and I add up all the numbers and I miscalculated by 10 points. I gave you 10 more points than you really add up. It's a 79, but I end up writing an 89. That's not fair. But it's in your favor. They're like, okay. I said, that's why you don't want to really use the word fair. Because fair means I can't give a curve on the exam. I can't give a curve in on you know the final grade because fair means I gotta give you what you made. Okay.
Well, I would also suggest that fair also means that you treat everyone the same. And so particularly for underrepresented or minoritized people, they see that oftentimes people are not fair, right? That some people get more based on other characteristics.
Yes.
So it's not just the.
Yes. And that was the other angle of it too. Yeah, thank you, because that's what we also say hard but fair is that, hey, what we do for one, we do for all. What we won't do for one, we will do for five. Okay. And so, you know, so I tell them many times when they're asking me for a decision, you know, I say, well, I said, one of my fundamental caveats is, can I do this for everybody else who come and ask me this question? Okay. You know, that way they have a sense of fairness. That way when they leave, they know that, hey, you know, Dr. Rock, because you got to remember, students talk. They talk. And they will say in a minute, you know, what you've done for them. They were going to let the whole world know, announce it, right? So you have to be careful. So that's one of the things we always talk about. And it builds character inside your mentorship relationship too, right? Another thing at the bottom, with collaboration, coalition, I encourage you always kind of I tell also we talk about in the sense of how, especially as a department chair or an administrator, how you encourage the younger faculty to go to these discipline-oriented conferences or workshops for, you know, their particular ethnic group or so forth. Okay, like I know in physics we got the National Society of Black Physicists. Okay, in the physics community we are less than 1%. Okay, so it's fairly small, but we have an annual conference, so we encourage, you know, students, faculty, you know, go to the conference and find funds to send them to the conference so that, you know, they come back energized, they come back excited, and they come back knowing, okay, well, yes, I might be the only physicist, you know, only person of color in this particular department, you know, in my home institution, but I have now a network of others, so I can, you know, feel like I'm not alone. Okay, and that makes a big difference. Okay, because you may not always be able to hire multiple hires, but you want them to also have a network that will help them to remain productive. Okay. And I know and reach out to some HBCUs and other major institutions that have strategic partnerships. Okay, that's one of the things we're doing with SD in my department with Ray and the faculty. We can find some areas where we have some overlap. and encourage those faculty to kind of talk. We did that with Dr. Severn, Greg Severn, and Dr. Land. Land, he's in my department. And they have a nice NSF grant, and we, you know, a couple of the students will be coming here this summer. Woo, one of them y'all gonna definitely remember. We call him Ali. His name is Muhammad Ali. That's his first name. But you can remember him by his character. That guy, he has so much personality. Man, I mean, he's a joy to be around. He's just Muhammad. We call him Ali. He just call him short Ali. But man, I'm telling you, y'all gonna love this guy. Man, yeah. Send some more Ali's, right. But yeah, he heard about it and he's interested. He's a senior, this major, and he's looking forward to his time here. So this is some of the things we have, and that really is all I have to present. Now it's just a matter if you have any questions or comments or inputs.
So I guess I have a question, and I'd like to hear from other. Well, yeah, obviously other people give questions, but where do you suggest we go from here? So I mean, you guys have put a lot of thought into this. You have kind of like a working document. I know you said you're going to keep working on things, but like, how do we, as you say, when you try, you lie. Like to actually like do something. How do we put this into practice? What do you recommend? Loaded question.
That means I'm just giving it a little time. I would put it in. I would start working at least 3 ways, minimum 3 ways. I would work, begin to start infusing this in any mentoring activities you already have. I'm always of the opinion, you never want to ignore what you've already done. Share with any leadership position I went into, I never erased everything and then start from scratch. Okay, that doesn't go well and build up morale. Okay, so I would try to find ways to infuse things into what's already in existence. I would try to get the leadership of the institution to buy into the definition, a working definition. Like, we recommend one, but hey, put that out among the faculty, let everybody start chewing on it some more, okay? To start getting engagement and also buy-in. Because that's the way you begin to, you put something out there, we really work it, and then ask leadership to, just like we accept our vision and mission. Hey, let's put this as a community-wide thing, okay? But then it shows that it's part of our community, it's part of our makeup, it's part of our character. And then the third thing I would do is I would start talking to the chairs to see if they're willing to implement this. Not just chairs, also the faculty, okay? Because as I think of all 3 levels, makes no sense to get it at the higher level and have them do a top-down approach. Okay. It can happen, but it won't. It'll happen for a minute and then down. You don't want to do just a bottom-up approach, because in that way, it has a tendency to take the wrong taste when it gets to the top tier. And you don't want to just infuse it in the middle, like a sandwich, because sometimes you need a little mayonnaise or mustard to give it a little bit more flavor. Okay, so I always say infuse it where it's appropriate, starting from the bottom, also get buy-in from the top. Because what you want to do, you're trying to saturate the system. Okay, saturation comes that you got to bring it in from all angles. Okay, if you're just trying to make it grow, then you grow it up this way or you grow it down this way. Okay, but you're trying to saturate, you're trying to make the whole community accept that we're in, part of our makeup is mentoring. Okay, and so that means you got to saturate from all sides, from all angles, and I would start putting in from like that. That would probably help it become more of a culture quickly. And the good thing about it is you already started something. Okay, it's not like it's a something foreign. I like the question that Dr. Eric asked me on today about when you're assuming that it's the system already bought into it, right? And so what I was saying, what made me think about it was that, okay, even if you don't have buy-in, mentoring is not just good for unrepresented minorities or minoritized peoples or things like that. No, it's just not just for them. It's good for everybody.
And it happens with everybody.
We all of it. Nobody's an island. Somebody mentored you along the way. Okay. Even in a negative sense. Right. Because somebody did some crazy stuff that you say, okay, I won't do that. So we got to see that mentor, because also a great element of mentoring, a great element of it is diversity. Okay. And it helps us to see that I can still mentor someone who's not of the same race or background or things of that nature, But if we have a natural inclination to connect and to grow, that's what you're really going on. Okay. You want to make sure you keep those professional, right? You don't want to go twist it to the side.
I was just going to answer one of Ray's questions about something that we could do easily early now, like next fiscal year, is just set up a separate funding mechanism for conferences that are specific to different groups within, like your Black physicists groups, where then the faculty member could apply for that in addition to their regular faculty travel. Because we have a development, we don't really have a block. So we could just
yeah, it's important that that's not their research travel.
Right, that it would be in addition to. Because I think too, and this is the other thing too, like the reason why, you want to go to the national convention because that's more theoretically prestigious. And so that, so if we had this additional, I think that would be an easy thing just to do right away.
Can we add funding to the students?
I mean,
Oh, that's like what OUR.
yeah,
I mean, that
And
there's
then
funding for that.
there's funding for students and also an ASG.
So maybe
Funding
a media
for-
funding like that sort of.
I'm hearing something. I think I'm hearing something. Does USD have a faculty travel?
Yeah, so
Yes.
everyone gets, in the college, everyone gets $1,800. Period. But then and then they can also apply for additional supplemental funding. But then I was suggesting having an additional supplemental funding that would be specific on this criteria that people could apply for.
Now, also, you help out the administrators, and when you also find other funding sources.
Oh, yeah.
There are other funding sources that actually support faculty travel. I mean, to conferences and rank students with things like that. Where you could write a proposal, like I remember at Morehouse, we wrote a proposal to Sloan Foundation, and they funded that for a 3 to 5 year window. And it was phenomenal. They didn't fund the international component of it, but it freed up funds for the institution to fund the international portion. Now that they have, nice.
Yeah, and a lot of our faculty have been very active in getting grants to support students and development and stuff like that. So that's-
And it also, but I always say too, you want to make sure you keep some element of responsibility also on the student. For the life of me, for this generation, and I've been asking my children to help me understand this. They don't like the word free. When I was coming up, man, say something free. Okay. Yeah. You know, if I tell them, hey, I got a free, trip to go to, present at this conference, blah, 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 and they're like, okay. I said, okay, well, all you have to pay is $100. Let me see. Yeah, I gotta consider it now. They're like, huh? All right. But I mean, in a sense, they begin to understand. Well, I just think they value when they put something in, they really, to them, to me, from what I'm understanding, is that when they put some funds or whatever in, they're really buying in. They really commit. And that's a good thing I think about this generation, is that they are a lot more when I say commitment oriented, I mean more or less like they have a way of being meaningful, being very meaningful in things. They used to have a lot of stuff. So that's it, quick, but that's something I noticed about this new generation, which I think is great.
So I noticed that Desmond's on your list of collaborators. I don't know how much she's told you about the grant that we have, the Ingerson grant that we have. But we have, cohorts of scholars coming from the local community, being recommended by local community organizations and bringing them to USD. We have very robust mentoring and support program for them. But one of the things that you brought up that makes me wonder is, one of the things that is a principal part of the grant is that we really want to not bring them from their, take them from their community and then build their identity here at USD, but we really want to utilize their community as part of their strength and part of what helps them grow and thrive at USD. And, I'm finding that a lot of them are struggling with balancing their responsibilities or their what they need to commit to their families with what they can do at school. Literally, it's really hard for them to not just shut it off, because they really want to. Their parents have a lot of high expectations of them and their parents. So I think that I'm wondering if you have any insight of just how to ideas of connecting to their local communities to actually not be something else that they have to do, but actually help mentor them and strengthen their experience on campus, which is such a very, very different cultural experience, even though it's a few months away. It's not an easy question.
It's not one, but it's one that I've experienced in both my environment, both when I was at Morehouse and now I'm at Fort. I've experienced, you got to get the community to see the institution as part of the community and not see it as two separate entities. Okay. When the community begins to understand that, hey, we're here, and that's one thing that happened at Morgan. And the president in his first year, he'll tell you this story. The bottom line was that he was trying to convince the community that he has this old strip mall they would tear down and rebuild and make it real nice and stuff like that, which was also give a better aesthetic look towards the campus and all that kind of stuff. Trying to convince them that that's good for them. Okay, but they didn't know him. They don't know you. That's part of mentoring. It has to be authentic. We have to establish a relationship. If the relationship only has been you, the institution, and you, every time I look it up, you buying up more property and you expand and taking over the community, right? Okay. And the only time when you can come on campus or we feel comfortable on campus is if we're students. Okay. When he learned that, he said, man, that was my biggest wake up. He said, I have to get the community to see that we are a part of the community and we are a resource for the community and vice versa. Now the community love Morgan and likewise it was the same way with Morehouse. So since the wall has already been put up, there's a wall between the community and the institution. The institution will have to take the initiative to tear down the wall by going out to the community and say, hey, invite them not only to some of the events on campus, but invite them to have an event on campus. And when they have an event or whatever, some of the university representatives need to be there. You know, that way they begin to see the university as a resource for the community, which then eventually you start seeing as a resource, you need to start seeing this as part of the community. The problem is that the university have always wanted to pull its best and brightest, so it's as if you feel like you're draining, sucking this dry. But you're not giving nothing back to the community. Okay, and that's what it got to be like, you know, where, and I think Morgan even had a community day one day, and everybody, you know, was on campus, and the what they call it thing that they have, the neighborhood meeting, whoever.
Black
Town hall party?
What they call it?
Black club or town hall,
Town hall meeting, and also when the neighborhood have a monthly meeting.
like a CAPS
Council
meeting.
meeting?
Huh?
So like a CAPS meeting where you bring in sort of all of the neighborhood, the police, everybody, representatives from the whole community come.
No, not just that, when the actual community of that neighborhood meet with all homeowners, that's what I was trying to think of the word. Yeah, the homeowners, when the university allowed them to meet on campus.
Hmm.
And they can reserve a room and all of them can come in, and the first couple of times he would have some refreshments for them and stuff like that, you know? And like, look, you know, this is your home too. Which means you got to realize now that it's a responsibility now. You just can't come and tear it up, right? So, but at the same time, they begin to start saying, okay, well, it's pretty cool, and you know, and then now you have in Morgan, they have 8 different neighborhoods immediately surrounding the campus, and he invited all 8 of them, and the presidents knew that they had opportunity to reserve the different rooms. Of course, they had certain rooms you can reserve, of course, you know, but they free of charge, you know, blah, blah, blah. And now the community start, you know, on campus, they talk about the community when there's some issues going on, like say there's some criminal activities and like that, the community now has a close eye too for the students, and also watching out for the campus. The campus is part of the community now. Okay, so I'm in the sense that we gotta get the community to say that we're part of them. We're not, you know, them against us. We're here too for you all in a different way. We can't do everything, but there are things we can do.
Yeah, I think we've got some things going where we're sort of like, you know, the octopus clause, like going out into the community, but not as much invited on campus.
It seems like it's a first step. It seems like you'd want to go to the community first. You don't want to just say, oh, we're just up on this hill, you come to us. So it
Right,
seems like-
right,
like
right.
some, like a new, you know, like have a friends and family, like picnic or something at a park nearby. So it's sort of like neutral turf, you know, and like, I mean, I know Willie, what you've talked about a lot is just that like, yeah, and what you're talking about is just the importance of family for a lot, and that like the family ties are so strong. And so the more you can engage the family.
Yes.
Important. And I mean, yeah, inviting them to campus would be great, but also it seems like the first to.
And if you want to make a big impact, what we should do at Morehouse too, what made a major impression, we would send some of the faculty to recruit in the high school. Some of the faculty, not just admissions, some of the faculty would go and talk to the schools and when the mission was trying to recruit, say one of the top students, or even, you know, a top athletic recruit, or even especially academic recruit, we would treat that academic recruit like it was a star athlete. We would go to, you know, faculty in the area that they're considering majoring in, institution, get them out there, you know, go and talk to them, especially if it's local. And we would literally just go in the house and sit down and talk with mom and dad. Okay. You know, every faculty ain't good at that, but you got enough that can do that. Seriously, you can do that.
Yeah.
And they begin to start seeing, because then now this is a catch on this. Let me give you the catch on that, which I think.
And then you have to go because it's too.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I do have to go. Okay, yeah.
It's
Okay.
here to catch though.
Yeah, this is the catch. You're gonna become that parent to that child. Because then the mom and dad gonna say, I'm entrusting you with my child. Yeah. Yeah, and in some cases, especially, you know, first generation, you know, they need to know that they got someone who they can call to, because they miss their child, they miss their baby like you miss your baby, your children. You know, my baby girl, I miss my baby girl from time to time. I have to call sometimes. I also have to know, okay, she's 25, she's not dating. So I'm just saying, but I also have to, meaning that it's not just that the kids are breaking away. We also have to break away. And it's good for us as mentors to be there to help the parent in that sense, where the parent will know, okay, well, I got somebody I can call if I really feel like, okay, I don't want, little Susie or little Johnny to know that I'm checking up on them. So, but that's a trade-off. But what it does, it strengthens the community. Okay, because also what it does, if the community begins to start providing home away from home experiences for the students too. Okay. Where you may have some local kids, but then you also have kids who are coming from out of the state. And when Thanksgiving come up or holidays coming up, they can't just make a run, or the international, they just can't. They can't make a run. Now they may connect with someone in the community, or the university may have some good relationships with the community, such as say, hey, we got a couple of international students, would you invite them over for dinner or Thanksgiving, blah, blah, blah. Looks beautifully. Beautiful. So that's, and you are in a perfect setting. You have a church on your campus. Then the people who come to the services and stuff like that are probably open to, to be like that, to be just like when our kids go international and study abroad, they stay with a family, right? I mean, we love something like that. All right. Well, that's been helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Safe flights, safe travels.
There's like no lines.